All right, let's get right into your English pronunciation. We're going to break down that recording you sent and really find the exact spots that will give you the biggest, fastest improvements in your clarity and your confidence.
So, here's how we're going to do this. First, we'll look at your overall score just to get the big picture. Then, we'll zoom right into the nitty-gritty, your consonants and vowels. We'll look at a couple of specific words that are giving you trouble, and then we'll wrap it all up with a really clear action plan.
First up, let's talk about that overall score. This is our baseline, right? It's the starting point from where we can measure all the great progress you're going to make.
Okay, so you scored a 65 out of 100. And you know what? That's a solid proficient level. It means you're communicating clearly, people get what you're saying. But there are some really specific, identifiable areas we can polish to make you sound even more natural. So let's pinpoint exactly what those are.
Now for the fun part. Let's get into the fine details, starting with the real building blocks of speech, the consonants. We're going to focus on the sounds that are the biggest challenge, because honestly, improving these is going to make the most impact right away.
First, let's tackle the voice TH sound. You know, the one in a word like the. This is such a foundational sound in English, and you'll see why getting this one right is a huge deal for a smooth, connected flow.
Okay, so the analysis shows a really consistent pattern. You're swapping out that th sound for a duh sound. And it's all about tongue placement. I mean, it's purely physical. For the duh sound, your tongue hits that bony ridge right behind your teeth. But for the th, you've got to move the tip of your tongue forward so it's making really gentle contact right between your teeth. That's what creates that soft vibration.
And this substitution was popping up in a bunch of keywords like this, then, and the. So the sounded a little more like D, and others was coming across more like utters. Seriously, correcting this one physical habit will make a massive difference in your overall clarity.
Next up is a sound that, let's be honest, challenges a lot of learners, the American R. And yeah, the data shows this is another key area for you to focus on.
So the key here is really two things: tongue tension and position. See, the American R isn't made at the front of your mouth. You have to pull the body of your tongue back and tense it up. It's almost like it's bunching up in the middle of your mouth, but without actually touching the top. That tension is what creates the sound.
And just look how often this R sound shows up at the beginning of roll, smack in the middle of military, and at the end of war. And your performance was pretty consistent across the board. So improving this one phoneme is going to clean up a huge number of words for you.
All right, let's switch gears from consonants to vowels. Vowels are the heart of every single English syllable, so getting these right is absolutely essential for sounding clear and natural.
We're going to start with the A vowel. That's the sound in cat. It's a really common, short, open vowel in American English, and it's a really important one.
Okay, here's what's happening. A really small physical habit is making a big difference in the sound. The issue is simply that your jaw isn't dropping quite low enough. And because of that, the A sound in cat starts to sound more like the S sound you hear in bed. The fix is pretty mechanical. You just have to consciously focus on dropping your jaw more.
We could hear this tendency in a lot of high-frequency words from your reading. So when you get to words like actions and planning, consciously dropping that jaw is going to create a much more accurate and open American English sound.
Now for an area where you're already doing pretty well, the I vowel, as in sit. Your score here is higher, which tells us you've got a pretty good handle on this sound already.
So the goal here is just refinement. You know, the difference between the short vowel in sit and the long vowel in seat, it's subtle, but it's really important. The data suggests that sometimes you're making this sound just a little bit too tense. The key is to focus on keeping your tongue and jaw relaxed to make sure this vowel stays short and crisp.
And you can see this sound appears all the time in these complex, multi-syllable words. Making that subtle distinction between the short I and the long E is what's going to take your pronunciation to that next level of clarity. Okay, let's put it all together now. We're going to look at a few specific words where these individual sound challenges kind of combine and become more noticeable. Think of these as your high-impact targets for practice.
The word Venezuela is a perfect example. In the recording, it sounded a lot closer to Veneza. A whole syllable was dropped, and some key consonant sounds were changed. That really alters the word's entire structure and, frankly, makes it pretty hard to understand.
Military is such a great word to practice because it forces you to switch really quickly between the L and that tricky American R that we were just talking about. And, one more thing, pay close attention to the stress on that first syllable. Mil-I-tary. And finally, the word world.
This word is a stress test for almost everyone, even some native speakers. It forces you to blend a vowel with an R and then immediately, in the same syllable, transition to a dark L at the end. It's a real workout for your tongue for sure.
So we've gone from the 30,000-foot view all the way down to individual sounds and specific words. Let's just wrap this all up by boiling it down to a few clear priorities for your practice.
Here's the main takeaway. You do not need to practice everything at once. Focusing really intensely on just these 3 areas is going to give you the most significant and noticeable improvements. Master that TH sound, develop your American R, and drill those complex, multi-syllable words.
Look, this diagnostic gives you the data, it gives you the roadmap. The next step is super simple. Just choose one of these areas and begin. So the real question is, what's going to be your first practice priority? Because that's where the real progress starts.